In the next few minutes, we examine key financial characteristics associated with exceptional opportunities. These include the forecast profit margins associated with your product and business, the time to break even, that is, when you stop making losses, the potential return on investment, the level of assets required to support the level of sales generated, and whether there is a potential rent roll situation. If your venture is at the startup stage, you may not have any actual financial data to base your financial projections on. Regardless, you'll need to develop forward estimates that will underpin the strategies you develop for establishing or growing your business, ideally for the next 3 to 5 years. Financially speaking, exceptional opportunities are characterised by ventures that demonstrate high net profit margins. Put quite simply, the net profit margin is the difference between the revenue generated by the business and the expenses incurred in generating that revenue. Thus, high net profit margins are developed through high levels of revenue relative to the expenses needed to generate that revenue. A second characteristic of exceptional opportunities is reflected in the time it takes for a venture to break even. That is, the length of time it takes to stop making losses and start making profits. The sooner that this can occur, the better. The reason is that there is only a limited time that a person or a business can continue to incur losses before they'll need to close the venture down. In this regard, the length of time to break even will vary from industry to industry. For example, consider the time to break even in an industry such as mining or hotel management, which may be reasonably lengthy. Compare this to, say, fast food, which you'd expect to be relatively short. Investors become excited typically where the break-even period is less than a couple of years. Good opportunities also have high return on investment. This means that the financial return on the money invested is significant and in excess of what could be achieved by investing in other asset classes. Good opportunities are also characterised by situations where the amount of money required to start and develop the business are reasonable. Of course, this will depend on the nature of the industry. Even so, there may be ways of reducing the level of funding required in startup situations by outsourcing, for example, production, rather than developing the necessary production facilities in-house. In startup situations, it is always desirable to minimise the level of investment in capital items wherever possible. This not only reduces the funding requirements, it also leads to a lower break-even point for the venture. Once again, depending on the nature of the industry, being able to generate a significant level of sales revenue from a relatively low asset base, that is, the value of the things owned by the business, may indicate an exceptional opportunity. For example, consider the following two fictitious companies, Company A and Company B, both operating in the same industry. Both companies have the same level of sales turnover, let's say $500 million. Both companies have the same level of expenses, say $400 million. And both companies have the same level of net profit, $100 million. However, Company A has assets valued at $5 million, while Company B has assets valued at $500,000. If all else is equal, in this simplistic example, it could be concluded that Company B is more attractive. This is because of its lower asset base or asset intensity required to generate the given level of sales turnover. And then finally, for this section, let's consider the prospect of what I call rent roll. This involves a situation where, after an initial sale has been made, there's a reason for customers to return and purchase additional items off you that are related to the initial sale item. For example, if you had an investment property, after securing a tenant, the tenant returns to pay you a monthly rental. Alternatively, consider once you purchase a photocopier, you are then obligated to purchase the photocopier printing cartridges from the photocopier supplier. These situations can be thought of in terms of rent roll situations. By this I mean that there is an ongoing rent to be received after the consumer commits to the original purchase. Of course, not all industries will present rent roll situations. This does not mean that there are not opportunities associated with these industries. It's just that rent roll situations are particularly attractive. And so to conclude, a range of issues need to be considered when evaluating an opportunity. The types of financial issues discussed here need to be carefully considered as part of this process.